Welcome back to Dr. Pronghorn's Make Along vlog. I'm Edward Davis, Dr. Pronghorn, and today I'm going to tell you about my trip to visit the Out of Order Watch Company while I was in Venice this summer. So I was lucky enough to get to do 2 months as a visiting scholar at Ca' Foscari University, which is the University of Venice. And while I was there, I took a little excursion down the road to San Dona di Piave, which is the home of the Out of Order Watch Company. And while I was there, I brought my Out of Order watch, got from Watch Gang, back home. And then I also was able to meet the founder of Out of Order and purchase a new fancy watch. I'll show you that watch, and then I'll tell you about the process of getting there to visit them in person if that's something that you want to do while you're in Venice. And if you're a watch aficionado and you're lucky enough to be staying in Venice, it's worth a day to make it over to San Dona di Piave and visit the Out of Order Watch Company headquarters. But be sure to call ahead and let them know that you'd like to come out, because it's not a place you can just show up in. They're actually busy working there, and you need to let them know before you show up. Okay? So let me show you the watch and the other swag I got while I was there, and then I'll show you how I got to the place and tell you about what I saw when I was there. So I had to buy something while I was there, and there was really only one watch I had my eyes on. So this is your out of order packaging. Very subtle in the end. Out of Order is a combination of subtle and just outrageous, and that's why I like it so much, because I'm also subtle and outrageous. Nice wooden box, real wood. Take note, actual wood. And inside, you got the watch itself. So I was lucky enough. Ricky also gave me an additional NATO strap that I can use for my existing Out of Order Automatico. I haven't switched to it yet because I do really like the original leather strap that came on it, but this is a nice one also. And I may use it on this watch or another one. But that was a great gift he gave me. And here's the watch itself. It is the Out of Order Swiss GMT. So it's an automatic GMT. What does that mean? It means that it has 2 hour hands. So it has a regular hour hand, and then has this extra one that goes around once in 24 hours. You can adjust independently. And the idea is that you set the 24-hour hand to Greenwich Mean Time, and then you can move this dial on the outside to whatever time zone you want to see, and it'll tell you what the time is there. So like I know that the time in Italy is 2 hours before Greenwich Mean Time, at least during daylight savings time. So then I can move it there and see what time it was in Italy, no matter where I was in the world. And then, of course, the time in Pacific time in the U.S. is 7 hours after. So you move it 7 hours over here, right? And then you can read the time off. So you can see that 1800 in Pacific time is the same as 3 in the morning in Italian time. But it's actually a pretty sweet watch. It's got a clasp bracelet. It's been distressed with a heat treatment that actually produces a patina that turns out to be harder and more scratch resistant than the regular stainless steel finish. So ironically enough, this will have less wear over time than an untreated, unpatinaed watch would. You can see that it's got a skeleton dial, so you can see the other dates around the outside. That lets you know if it's at a quarter after the hour and the hand's over today's date. You can still kind of figure out what day it is. Although probably you should know what day it is. And then it's got a see-through back too, so you can see the mechanism, and it is an automatic. Okay, I don't have it wound up, so it's not working right now, but it keeps really good time. And then the bezel rotates both directions because it's not a timing bezel for diving. So the reason why you have a unidirectional bezel is just to make sure you can't accidentally give yourself too much time to dive. So these bezels are set up for diving. They can only go counterclockwise. So if you bump it, you'll never add time on to your dive. You'll only take time away from your dive. That keeps you from dying when you're diving. This one is supposed to be able to let you check time zones, so it goes both directions. Okay, and it comes with a booklet, tells you how to use it. And this is really, I love this. Again, out of order humor. The certificate of authenticity is also a bottle opener, right? So that's pretty sweet. And not only did I get all that, but I also got an official out of order ball cap, which came pre-distressed with some wear on the brim, but I think it was not adequately out of order enough, so I wore it while I was working on my Jeep and purposefully got it dirty with Jeep grease. So I think it properly looks distressed, like out of order style now. And everybody loves this hat. They don't know what it means. They think it's some kind of a joke that I'm wearing a hat that says out of order on it, but I guess it is kind of, if you're familiar with the brand. And then, of course, in the back, born in Venice, Italy. So that's what I got. Now that you've waded through that, I'll tell you about the process of going to visit out of order headquarters in person if you want to. It's actually pretty straightforward to get there from Venice, but there are a couple of pointers I want to give you because Google Maps will lead you astray. Okay? And I almost forgot, but here's a secret message hidden in the watch. So here's Italy, and I was in Venice this summer. Venice is up here at the sort of bootstrap part. And as I zoom in, you can see it's actually got the beautiful lagoon, right? And the city of Venice itself, the main part are these islands out in the lagoon that were used to defend the Republic of Venice from attacks from the ocean and the land back in earlier times. Now Venice is mostly a tourist attraction, and you can access it by a roadway and buses and trains that come in from the mainland. I was actually staying in Mestre because the science campus for Ca' Foscari, where I was working, was over here near Forte Marghera, and so my trip was to take the train from Mestre all the way over here to San Dona di Piave, which is where the headquarters for Out of Order Watches is located. Now, it's actually about a half an hour, 25 to 30-minute train ride, depending on which train you catch. It's not that far, and if you have access to a car, you can actually make the drive faster, right? So it's nicer, well, maybe not. It's about 30 or 40 minutes either way, but I took the train, so I'm going to tell you how to get from Venice to Out of Order Watches, taking public transit and walking. So you start in Venice or Mestre and take the train up to San Dona di Piave. And then once you get to town, you get off at the train station, okay, which is on the west end of town, and then Out of Order is actually over here on the east end. So to make it all the way across, you could get a cab and take a cab across, or you could take the bus. There is a bus, but it turns out that the bus schedule is such that it ends up taking about the same amount of time to walk as to take the bus. So I just decided to walk, and you can see Google says it's about a 40-minute walk from one end of town to the other. That seemed reasonable to me. I'm a big walker. I don't mind to walk 40 minutes. And there's, 3 basic routes it suggests, but they all kind of converge here on the east side of the hospital. So this quad right here is the hospital. And so I was able to troop out from the train station, and I didn't have my phone open the whole time for directions, taking some video even, but I got a little bit lost. Not that hard to find yourself though, and made it to the hospital. And then Google suggests that you should actually cut through the inside of the hospital grounds, but I got there and I was kind of like weirded out by the idea of doing that. They seemed really busy, and COVID's still a thing, and they were really busy dealing with COVID and sick people, and so I just walked around it. Didn't have that much time, and I felt like I was staying out of the way of the people who were doing real important work. I got onto the street via Luigi Carrozzani, and I walked all the way over here to this intersection, and that's where the Google walking directions went really wrong, because it turns out that this street right here, Via Cavallecchia, is a major highway, and there's not any provision for walking alongside of this highway. So you can see on the Google map that the sidewalk actually ends right here. So I got to that point, and honestly, I'm still a novice at this YouTube video thing. Otherwise, I would have taken some video of this. But there was clearly no way to get across this intersection. I couldn't get from here to there, and I needed to just go right over here to out of order watches. Fortunately, I had given myself extra time to get there for my appointment, so I had time to backtrack, but this was definitely not going to work. And so I'll put in, let's see, we can do Street View. If we just drop into Street View right here, you can see that the sidewalk just ends, and then you got this roundabout. And if it were really low traffic, yeah, you could hot-foot it across there and make it over to where the out-of-order watches are. But there were so many cars coming through in the morning. This was on I believe a Friday morning when I was there, that there was no way I was going to be able to make it. It was just going to be dangerous, and I didn't want to end up in the hospital again. I'll tell my hospital in Italy story some other video. So what I did was I backtracked. And I was trying to do all this navigation using Google Maps and my nose. So I went back and I walked down this road here. And it turns out that it doesn't go through. So it ends up in this parking lot for this business here. And this parking lot for this business here. And you can't actually make it from there over to Via Cavallecchia. And I could see on the map that there was a pedestrian and bike way on the east side of it that I needed to get to. So I had to backtrack again, back up here to Via Carrozzani. I went back one more street, and I was able to get down this one, Via Colombo. And at the end of it, it transitions into this gravel bike and pedestrian path, which actually was pretty beautiful. And I got some really nice footage of walking down this bike and pedestrian path. So you can see, it was actually much nicer than just walking on the city streets. And that took me all the way over to here where I could get onto Via Cavallecchia. And so in the end, what I see now is that what I should have done was just take that bike path all the way. So I could have picked it up here from Via Carrozzani and then gotten onto the bike path and taken that all the way down. And it actually has a nice spot with a crosswalk to get across onto the pedestrian part. Then you can get onto this little frontage road via Vanoni, and that'll take you up to this parking lot. You run around the side of it here, and you get to the out-of-order watch company door at this point. Okay. Once I got to that door, I knew I was home free. Of course, it's locked. And the reason why it's locked is because it's not just like a store. It's actually the facility where they make the watches. They do the designing there, and they do all their business there, and they have the workshop in the back where they do the patina of the watches as well. And so I was able to buzz in. They let me in, and that's when I was able to go and meet with Ricky. This is the art that greets you when you come in. Think it, we make it. And I got to see all the different watches. Ricky laid out all the watches that Out of Order produces, and some that are prototypes that haven't been produced yet. Ricky's the founder of Out of Order, and apparently on the internet some people think he's made up, that Out of Order is actually a Chinese company, and that this whole Italian angle is just a cover story or advertising gimmick, but I can assure you it is not. It really is Italian. So the one on the left is a prototype, and the one on the right, the Cielo. So one of their vegan versions of the chronograph. So it's got a vegan band. The left one I don't think has ever been produced. It's a complete blackout Automatico. I love it. And then he showed me all the different GMTs they've got. Each GMT is based on a city, and it has hidden details that you can only see when the loom is lit up in the dark. Like this is the Venice one, and the Venice map shows up in the loom along with a marker showing where the train station is. That's the Torpedine, or Torpedo. This is another prototype, I think, that was maybe never produced. Maybe it will be produced sometime. And then this is the display they have, which just has a whole bunch of out-of-order material, merchandise, watches. So you get an idea of the whole run of the line. There's the hat I ended up getting. I've got, of course, better patina on it now. They have the hats in black also. And yeah, it was just great to see all these cool watches. Each one is hand patinaed, so they're not no two the same, and each one's been handled by a technician there in Italy to get it to the particular color combination and wear that it has. And then to leave, I got a photo with Ricky to show I was actually there. After I was done meeting with Ricky, and I bought my Swiss GMT, which I love. It was so hot. It was like above 95 degrees Fahrenheit. What is that, in the high 30s Celsius? Ricky was kind enough to actually take me in his car back to the middle of the town. So instead of having to walk back, which I was anticipating, he actually gave me a lift and dropped me off back in the middle of downtown at a nice little cafe. And after eating at the cafe, I had time to kill, so I wanted to go and explore the park area by the river. So here's where the train station is, and you can see there's actually this really beautiful park, right? So there's Out of Order. He dropped me off in the middle of downtown here, and I wanted to get to the park, but before I did, it seemed like a good idea to go ahead and check out the cathedral. Here you can see the cathedral is just north of the park. And so I was able to get over here and actually spend a little bit of time getting some photos of the bell tower and the front of the cathedral, as well as the fountain that's in the small square right in front of the cathedral. I waited for the tower to strike the hour. I happened to be there at a time when it should have struck the hour. And unfortunately, they seem to have quieted the bells. So even though there are bells in the cathedral, it doesn't seem to strike the hour, at least during the middle of the day. And maybe that's because it's kind of irritating to have clock tower striking the hour over and over again. But it was interesting to watch because the clock mechanism in this campanile didn't smoothly move the hands. The hands actually sat static at the minutes, and then at each minute as it passed, the hand would move 1 minute around the face of the clock. So a lot of clocks move the minute hand slowly every second, or however often the pendulum moves, but this clock was set up so that the minute hands actually moved only on the minute. Then I hoofed it down to the park here, and there's actually a neat little cafe. I didn't get any video there because there were a lot of people. I felt uncomfortable photographing them. There's several cool displays talking about the history of the area, and then there's this fountain, I guess our water feature that's near the river that seems to be covered with scientific formula. I wasn't able to understand exactly why that was there, but it was still cool to see. And then this park itself has the Parco Fluviale, which I guess means the river park, has a number of really cool paths and some cool features, playground equipment, and public sculptures, right? So I was able to see this, you can't see it from the map, but here's some footage showing me walking through this little fort that's there for kids to play. And then there's actually this cool circle of barbecue pits so that a number of families could have barbecues together during the summer when it was hot, but not too hot. Nobody was out barbecuing that day because it was just too hot. And then hidden in these trees over here actually are several giraffe sculptures, which I thought was pretty cool. They're really big, but they're not actually quite life-size because giraffes are really big. But they were big enough to be impressive, and it was entertaining to get to see them hiding in the park. And after I'd wandered around and looked at all this stuff and gotten extremely hot and drunk up 2 liters of water that I was carrying around with me, I decided it was time to go ahead and head back. So I walked back from the park through town to the train station and hopped the train back to Mestre. And it was really nice to be in the air-conditioned train after hanging out in the extreme heat for a while. And the trains in Italy are really nice. They're clean, they run on time, everybody's really kind, helping you figure out how to use the trains. And you know, I can't say more good things about public transit in Italy. I wish that in the United States we had trains that came as often and were as well dispersed across the landscape as they have in Italy. And the buses in town are great too. So, yeah. And so then I trained it on out of town and back to Mestre. And that was the end of my trip to see out of order watches and get my GMT. Thanks for watching this video, and let me know what you think of the watch I bought, of my trip to out of order. If you like these watches or you think patina's stupid, well, you probably don't have to tell me in mean words, but you could disagree with me kindly in the comments. Or if you really like patina, let me know.